Tacos de Alambre, perfect Friday night taco feast, beef, melted cheese, peppers. What's not to like? Hello everybody and welcome back to my kitchen. The next page in our taco manual takes us to something called tacos de alambre. Now, before you Spanish speakers go, what? He's going to be making tacos of wires? I will tell you where that alambre fits in here. Yes, it is the word for wires, but in northern Mexico especially, they love to eat these sort of shish kebab-like things they call alambres. And what they put on there, the vegetables, the tocino, the bacon, the beef, is all going to come off, get chopped up. I'm going to cook it like a taco a la plancha, but I'm going to be using a big cast iron skillet here. And then we're going to cover it in melted cheese, kind of a modern thing, but who doesn't like some seared steak with melted cheese? So the first step in this, I've got 4 slices, thick slices of bacon here that I've just cut crosswise like that. I've preheated this pan. It's about over a medium-high heat here, and I'm going to put the bacon in there. You can hear it start to sizzle right away. Okay, so we will stir this around pretty regularly until it's completely crisp. I actually like to cook bacon over that higher temperature rather than lower because I can get it done and out of the pan when it's just at the perfect stage. Okay, so next step is to cut up a piece of steak. Now you've got lots of choices here. My choice would be ribeye, but you could use a New York strip steak. You could use a sirloin steak if you like that leaner texture of it. But this piece of ribeye, I'm going to cut it into about 1/2-inch pieces and then cut it crosswise so we have nice little cubes. And then I'm going to season it with salt and pepper. As with all beef preparations, the seasoning with salt should be liberal. And then I've got a good amount of black pepper, freshly ground over the top. When you fresh grind the pepper, it has so much more flavor. Now, time to check this bacon. It's rendering nicely. I want it to render enough so that I can sear that beef in it. If the rendering is not sufficient for a good sear on the beef, then I'll add a little bit more bacon drippings, or I could use freshly rendered pork fat, pork lard, or even vegetable oil if I wanted to. Beautifully crispy bacon here. I'm going to take it out with a slotted spoon so that I can make sure that we leave as much of the fat behind as possible, but it rendered a good amount. I didn't think that it was going to. Okay, so we've just got the fat in the pan now, and I'm going to start searing this beef. Now it has to go in an uncrowded layer, otherwise it won't brown, it'll just kind of stew around there. So I'm going to just knock it all off into the pan and then very quickly spread it out. Make sure that it's nicely coated with the fat that is in this pan, and then I'm going to let it cook undisturbed on one side. Remember to spread out all the pieces, but I'm going to let it cook on one side undisturbed so that it gets some really good browning. If I basically stir fry it, keep it moving all the time, the meat will get overdone before it gets brown. Okay, you've got to have patience, otherwise it won't brown. But now I've turned a couple of these pieces over and seen that they are richly browned underneath. So now I'm going to stir it around like that. I'm not meticulous on this part, but I will let it sit for another minute or so to brown whatever's touching down here. If you want to be meticulous, you could turn every piece over. But I'm just going to let this set for a minute or so that we get a little browning on that other side. And then we're going to do the final seasoning. Now, this is one of the things that I use kind of like a secret weapon because it boosts umami. They do the same thing a lot in Mexico with jugo Maggi. And just sprinkle some of that over the top. I put about a tablespoon or so in there. Stir until it's all reduced. And that will coat this meat with an absolutely delicious, delicious flavor. Now I'm gonna scoop all of this into a bowl, and we will turn the heat off for a minute while we prep all the vegetables. Now, the vegetables that we have for this, I'm using poblano peppers. To tell you the truth, in Mexico, a lot of people use green bell peppers, red bell peppers. They love that sweetness in a dish like this. I like the more robust flavor of the poblano, and I am going to clean it by just pulling out the seed pod and stem, and then we will cut this into strips. Now, for this, there's lots of ways that you can do it. A lot of people, I'm going to get these stray seeds out of my way here. A lot of people will flatten the poblano like that and then cut crosswise. And I find that to be the easiest way to do this. Okay, I'm going to move those guys back there, and then we have a big chunk of onion here. I will cut the root end off there and slice that. Now, next step will be to heat the pan up again. Make sure it has enough fat to coat the bottom for this sautéing. Now, my pan doesn't have quite enough fat to coat the bottom of it here, so I'm going to put a little bit of fresh rendered pork lard here. I always emphasize fresh rendered because you don't want to buy those bricks of that stuff in the grocery store. It's hydrogenated, it's old, it doesn't really have the kind of thing that we're looking for flavor-wise here. Plus, when it's hydrogenated, I can tell you, it's not good for you. Fresh rendered pork lard is better for you than butter is, but not the stuff that you find in the bricks in the grocery store. Okay, I'm going to saute these now until they begin to soften some, and I'm going to scrape up everything that's at the bottom of the pan. That stuff is so delicious, and it will flavor these onions and poblanos incredibly well. When the onions begin to brown and have softened some, but still have a bit of crunch to them, we'll be ready to finish this dish. Oh, just look at these beauties here. They're still kind of crunchy, which is what I'm always looking for, but they're so beautifully coated with all the meat juices that caramelized on the bottom of the pan here. We'll put our meat back in there. Stir that, and we have to let it re-warm for just a minute here. These are definitely like Friday night tacos. It's not something you just throw together for a quick meal, but something when you want to do something kind of special for family or friends. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is to sprinkle on some melting cheese. Mexican melting cheese could be anything from, they call it manchego. It's not really related to Spanish manchego at all, but you'll see a lot of that in the Mexican grocery stores. Or one that's called Chihuahua cheese, but don't hesitate to just use something that is like your Monterey Jack or Colby or a mild cheddar for this. Any of those will work. And we're just going to let this sit until that cheese starts to melt here. Okay, now it's started to melt. I'm going to give it a gentle stir here, turn off the heat, and we've got a nice cheesy mass here. Not a mess, but a mass. And I will lay down a towel here and transfer the pan over to here. It's sizzling and looking really delicious. The crispy bacon goes over the top here, just evenly spread it on. I've got some cilantro here, and I will just take a bunch of the cilantro leaves to sprinkle over the top. I will tell you, this is really wonderful to serve straight in the pan that you have made it in, because then everybody can go in with a warm tortilla in their hands and scoop up some of this kind of cheesy goodness. Now, because this is a rich taco, I really like to use Mexican hot sauce on top of it. So I put some of that. It's tangy, it's spicy, it'll cut through all the richness, and then you just enjoy.